by the looks of things, we should be getting started in just a moment here. Now, of course, open mode, we do have the choice between Sanctuary and Link's House, and we're going to find a sword, actually, at Link's House today.
And from the one start we had at Sanctuary, just 20 rupees, so that's what we're going to get from that location.
It seems to me, though, that people who have found a weapon in Link's House are very eager to go check the escape. After all, this is how we would start the game vanilla, ironically enough.
That's true, and it's a good place to start. There's, the Uncle Cave, 2 items in there. You have this little tree drop, so you can get some possible item drops from that, and also the 3 weapons inside the escape as well. So, definitely a good chance to get some early items.
And we'll see Argyle make a different choice heading towards the Lost Woods, going to check the 2 items here, as well as make his way to Kakariko. Did not catch the Uncle, I believe it was 10 arrows?
Yes, 10 arrows from the Uncle, and from the other chest we got a piece of heart.
Alright, so nothing too amazing over there at the start, but they do have the benefit of that sword, which will make traversal much, much simpler. Picking things up and throwing them, kind of time intensive, and we may see Argyle waste a little bit of time doing that.
Yeah, it looks like all 3 of the Link's house starts are going to be taking that trip into the escape. Again, just really nice to have that weapon to get through here. We do find a book in the Lost Woods. Surprised we didn't get a quick pedestal check since we would be in the area, but probably going to save that for later when we might have Lemire and we're going through Skull Woods and whatnot.
Perhaps practicing some seed literacy, trying to read the logic and follow it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But that also does give us Desert Palace pretty early in the race, so that may be something of consideration when we head to South Shore.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it showed it was a pendant on the map check. We have gotten the green pendant, in fact, and I believe we also had a crystal at Tower of Hera and another pendant at Eastern Palace.
Well, that's interesting. One of those will be the green pendant, and if it were Eastern Palace, that'd be actually kind of convenient for Sahasra to check, but we didn't. And of course, as a reminder of the game mode, we are playing Defeat Ganon as the goal, so that means we need all 7 crystals, get to Ganon's Tower, and of course defeat Ganon.
Yes, that is correct. Next item we have here in the escape, as we'll find out, is just another piece of heart.
And as all 3 of those runners head towards the basement in Zelda's cell, looks like Argyle's also gotten under the hunt for escape sequence. It'd be kind of interesting to see if any of these guys manage a 6-minute escape.
I can see it happen.
It would definitely be close, but it's just interesting that they're all...
Yeah, I know, right?
This ball and chain guard here is oftentimes thrown with 2 pots we'll throw at him, will be a fast kill as well. But with Fighter Sword, 8 slashes is actually the very quickest way to do it. It's just a little bit more precise.
And we did get some bombs from the chest that's inside Zelda's cell. So that's going to actually make Kakariko probably a prime target for some of these runners because they have those early bombs. They'll be able to get the rupees inside those caves and, of course, the extra item inside the well and the greenhouse. So that's looking to be their next move.
Yeah, there are worse things you can find in Zelda's cell. Unfortunately, it does mean that the entire dive into the basement wasn't all that valuable otherwise.
Yeah, not really.
But we can exclude those items, and that knowledge is, of course, valuable. Most runners will end up checking the entire escape sequence, so it's probably time neutral for everybody here.
Probably.
So I suppose the first big question to ask is where are we going to head after this? We do have, of course, South Shore and the Eastern Palace areas, all very item dense. I think Mini Moldorm seems like a likely play.
Yeah, especially that sword, you can take out the mini Moldorms without too many issues, so that could be a good place. We're going to see a Lumberjack tree, though, check from Blan, and we have just 300 rupees.
And I got to shout him out for throwing the bomb at the bush. That's actually a little bit faster than slashing through all 6 of them, and not oftentimes seen, but if you have bombs to spare, it might have been a little bit aggressive to use one of his 3 bombs.
Yeah, that's true. Because this is version 30, the bomb capacity upgrades and the arrow capacity upgrades have been removed and replaced with their vanilla contents, which are just, extra bombs and arrows. So you can generally find arrows and bombs a lot faster now, or a lot easier anyway. never know what you're going to get from items. So it's still kind of risky, but it looks like we are getting quite a bit of stuff here in the greenhouse.
Yeah, speaking of bombs, more of that, we also find a Quake Medallion and a mirror, which has good and bad implications. We may spend more time searching for things in the overworld, but having it is a nice comfort, I think.
Yeah, it's always good to get that mirror early before you start getting into Dark World stuff, just so it makes kind of routing things a lot more convenient. Don't have to leave too many like one-off locations around.
And of course, if you want to reflect on the seed, you have the perfect weapon for it.
Yes, exactly.
Personally, I would use it to reflect on my failures, but here in the well, we're going to find the cape, which should hopefully prevent that.
Yeah, we'll see. With that cape, we are technically just one item away from a certain dungeon being within logic.
Yes, the often feared and despised Castle Tower, a good old 5-minute time sink that, if you can potentially skip it, say through a sequence break, would be an awesome play to make.
But at this point, I mean, I'm looking at our inventory. We don't have a glove, we don't have a hammer, and we don't have the moon pearl, so that could be our only access to Dark World at this point.
Certainly a recipe for that. We will, of course, still end up checking a lot of the overworld before then, but with the locations available to us, the number of junk items in the pool, wouldn't be surprised.
Yep.
Well, Chicken Shack today is yet another stack of 10 arrows. We're finding lots of bombs and arrows here in Kakariko. I think I've counted 50 arrows so far.
And just a blue rupee inside the tavern, so we're going to be going south to get mostly intel. We'll be able to check the library, but not actually get the item there. And then there's also the race game, which we could get, but often we might see what it is first before we grab it.
Yeah, it's one of those time saves that you can potentially get, but you might end up doing something that somebody wouldn't have even done at all. So,
yeah,
50-50 gamble. I like to go for it, but if I'm coming from the north, particularly. It looks like Pryor's not going to leave anything to chance, going to check to see that it's a big 20 and save the time.
It looks like Alus is doing the same thing as well. Pryor is not, though. He is actually going in to grab that big 20.
Yeah, having not checked to see what it was, we'll at least have 20 more rupees to work with. However, we don't have anything to spend cash on at the moment. That might come into, value for dig game if we check that before we ever get the rupees for Zora, though.
Oh, that's the bow. That wasn't a big 20.
Whoa. Okay, I stand corrected. I mean, it's a big something. I mean, that's an awesome find, though. So now Eastern Palace becomes a much more attractive option. We don't have the lamp for it to be completely within logic, but I would think that many of the, higher speed racers out there in Randomizer are pretty comfortable with their dark rooms.
In our defense, definitely from the side, if you don't scroll and see the whole item, it does kind of look like a big 20 a little bit from the side.
Oh no, I was 100% out my skull. Chat's finding some creative ways to describe the big, not 20, but yeah. Thanks, folks.
Yeah.
However, with that, we will make our big entrance into the Eastern Palace. Of course, we're going to check with our favorite cowboy friend, Saharshalarsh here. He's got 3 items stashed in his cave, and Illis will give us the first look at it. Cash and armor. All right. Definitely something that's welcome to have, but not the progression that we needed.
And we don't have to talk to him either, because we already know what that green pendant's going to end up being, too.
Now, of course, we will end up talking to him multiple times. There are those telepathic tiles that we find throughout Hyrule. In version 30, they now include hints, which is a somewhat controversial issue. I think a lot of people appreciate them now that they've played with them.
And inside the mini Moldorm, we have the flutes, more arrows, some rupees, 300 rupees, and some more big 20s.
Well, if you ever wanted to shove towards Zora through a fake flipper play, I guess that would probably be the biggest thing, but Pryor's not going to take the bait today.
Yeah, Pryor's going to be, looks like he's going to be going right back to activate that flute.
Yeah, and given he's about 90 shy of Zora, I totally understand that play.
Yeah, definitely. But you did mention the hints. Yeah, like you said, the hints have definitely been a major talking point for version 30. Just to break it down, throughout the dungeons and also a few overworld locations, there are these tiles that you'll find on the wall, and they'll give you basically either some kind of hint of where an item could be, or they could give you just some random hints that don't really even apply to this game, like from Zelda 1 or something. So, um, a key thing runners have been doing for this version is kind of taking note of where those tiles are, getting some information along the way, and it basically adds, like, not really an extra item, but some extra intel for the game in a dungeon. So, you know, Ice Palace, for example, it has the 3 items, but you also have 3 hints in that dungeon as well, so that generally looks like a more valuable location because of that.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, one of those joke hints, Dodongo hates smoke or something like that.
Yes.
Usually those are in green, so you'll know that those are the hints that are joking around. A nice little feature for people who are potentially not as familiar with the Zelda 1 references.
Ooh, a unique item requires the cape. So with that hint, we know that there is going to be something on Bumper Ledge. Now, it could be an important item, like the hammer, or it could be the single arrow item. Basically, anything unique that will only appear once. That is essentially what unique means in this case.
Yeah, and most of the time, hints aren't really that valuable as far as specificity. But that's one of the few that are very specific on the exact location, so we'll know exactly where we're going for that. We do find a mushroom as well in Eastern Palace, so a potential fetch quest that may point us towards Northeast Hyrule at some point.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, there's also always the opportunity for a hint to give you information that you might already know. Like, it tells you that, oh, hey, there's a sword in your house. Yeah, I know, we got that already.
Those are my favorite, honestly. You know, I mean, at least you get confirmation that it wasn't something more annoying on the hint.
Yeah, true.
Well, if you thought that, you know, we got lost there for a minute on a couple of these screens, no, these are just dark rooms. So you have to memorize the room or otherwise poke your way around in the dark. If you don't have a sword, it's actually kind of frustrating. And the not often seen cape strats to hit the switch in the big key room. Nice game knowledge of Argyle there.
And in the last chest in Eastern Palace, we do find a bottle. So that will actually give us another location in the form of Sig Kid back in Kakariko.
Well, it's very interesting. Of course, now that we've made the commitment to do a dark room, it appears that our runners are also going to commit to finishing the dungeon. So this will complete everything that we need over in this area. This was the green pendant. We still will be able to turn into Sahaswala.
And looks like the old man on Death Mountain will give us some bombs, and Glenn is going to keep on going up to the top of the mountain because there is some intel we can get on top of Spectacle Rock. There's also an item inside Spectacle Rock, and there's also one of the few overworld hints inside Spectacle Rock as well. So we'll be getting some information there.
Yeah, and he'll be able to get all the way up to the top of the mountain too, so he'll be able to check the tablet now that because he has this mirror.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he does have the mirror.
So there's a lot of information here in the mountain. Very much agree with this decision. If only we had the hook shot, we could do a full round trip, or maybe the hammer. Actually, hammer would probably be best, because then we can go from the west to east.
Yeah, that would definitely be valuable. Well, hey, maybe in Hera, because right now, Death Mountain is within logic because of that flute.
Whoa, that tip! And we're going to see a really nice bomb jump from Glenn here, or at least an attempt. This is one of the hardest ones to do in the game, and he pulls it off marvelously. He finds out that boots are in Thieves Town, though.
And boots, not always... Ooh, oh, and there is a magic rod on top of Spectacle Rock as well.
Wow, when it rains, it pours magma.
Oh my gosh, I just saw that the king from the CDI games is the Dark World sprite.
I'd quote him, but Good times, good times. There's some
Yeah,
black
we'll
sheep
go
in the
with
series.
Yeah.
Although I gotta commend, the community sprite developers who, come up with these ideas. These are amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Major props to those guys.
Oh, so we also got
Ooh.
information. Is that a sword upgrade in Pyramid Fair?
Yes, something sharp refers to your sword, so yes, that is going to be in Pyramid Fairy.
Well, it remains to be seen if we're going to actually check that. I think if our runners find tempered, they might not bother. That will be all of Eastern Palace for Prior as well. And as Glenn climbs the rest of Tower of Hair, we're getting the rest of the overworld from Arkle and Illis, who has just up activated his flute. Hey, a great time to check Sick Kid though.
Yeah, and I believe that was not something that Glenn did when he first got there, because he doesn't have that bottle yet, so that could end up being something big.
Well, armed with the extra 300 rupees, great time to check this mushroom and head towards Zora. I really like the combos that Illis is doing here.
300 from the Sick Kid.
Yeah, and flush with cash, just going to buy a potion while we're up here. Very smart decision, because if you have a bottle, I mean, you may as well be prepared for an under-equipped fight, which we may very well find ourselves in pretty soon, knowing that the boots are in Thieves Town.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Glenn, did not succeed at this bomb jump earlier, and actually fell 2 floors as a result, so we can try to make sure he makes this time. He does, and he's going to grab it in the big chest, which is just the small key.
Yeah, and that bomb jump's made a lot more difficult without the boots. Normally when you have boots, you get a 6-pixel window if you bonk off the wall next to the explosion. And if you have to just stand there and do it, it's a 2-pixel window, so not very forgiving.
Yeah, definitely not.
Land taking a bit of a wrong turn here, falling down again, which is a very frustrating place to be at in Hera. Trying to do a bumper skip. Opting against it. Probably the safer decision since the enemy got a little close there.
So at this point, we still don't have any of our Dark World items, so where could they be?
What's the access? I mean, with that cape, I guess we do have Aghanim.
Oh, we don't have the lamp, so even that's not in logic yet either.
Good point. That kind of makes me think we're going to either find Lamp or, either the Hammer, or, some other Dark World real soon, because, I mean, that's got to be the only things left.
Right. And at this point, because, it's 1 item versus 3, I'd say that Aga is probably closer to the build than what Dark World is at this point. Oh, there's the Moon Pearl.
Wait, was that Moon Pearl on Moldorm?
Yes.
That's so close to vanilla. We find a Power Glove.
And the Power Glove in Desert, which we can get right now with that book.
Also, not very far from home. Some words regarding randomized and, yeah. But it's nice, though, to find those things so close to where they would originally be. This makes this light world kind of similar to NMG a little bit. With a vanilla green pendant as well, so logical implications aren't too fancy. This is pretty standard for A Link to the Past. How we end up in the Dark World, I think, is really the biggest unanswered question.
With 2 of those items, we pretty much have the same chance of it being from Aghanim or from just finding the hammer somewhere. We did just get a very nice hint here in Desert Palace. It's the kind of hint I actually like. It said that there are some arrows in Mimic Cave, which, not something we really want, but that lets us know that if we do have to go to Turtle Rock later, we don't have to check Mimic Cave. So that's 1 location we can kind of cross off the list.
Yeah, anytime you can, take out a mirror transition, having to go through a cave, kill some enemies, I mean, that's a pretty decent chunk of time. Oh, and there's that hammer.
Ooh, wow.
You know, I mean, we said it was a bit of a long shot, definitely not a hook shot, but definitely some time, you know, and items we would need to prevent the Aghanim. But the recipe for success for that, I mean, that looks to be the combo we need, isn't it?
Yes, I believe it is. Also going to see, I believe we got this check from Eluse just a moment ago, but I wanted to read this again. Time for a change of clothes. Okay, that is the other mail upgrade.
And with all of those items in mind and the very convenient hammer, Gland's going to continue the Death Mountain exploration with Paradox Cave, 7 more items, and of course Spiral Cave. Being able to check quite a lot up here. This is a very nice sequence of events here.
Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately, 2 for 2 on getting Dead Rock.
Those dead rocks are so mean. Also get a new check from Prior here. Going inside the back of the escape. Gonna get 3 treasures back in here. Ooh. That's a little unfortunate. Finds both the map and the small key here, which means there is an item in the dark sewers.
Yeah, and it's notoriously difficult to do that dark room over most others. There's quite a few screens to get through. And of course, without that lamp, you're going to spend a lot of time doing it.
Fire Rod would make it some rooms a little easier, just to give you a little extra visibility, but still, there's a couple rooms you do have to move through without that convenience.
Nevertheless, though, information that is valuable may end up making the decision to come back there, and if it's something important, probably do so before, you know, their opponents.
Yeah, definitely.
Prior's going to pick up the Ice Rod Cave item, which is just a full heart container. We'll also see a Tower of Hera Moldorm fight for Illis, and Argyl's in Desert Palace right now. I'm curious what we're going to find in the upper half of this Paradox Cave, though.
Yeah, we found a shovel and the blue boomerang. Nothing substantial there, but we have 5 more chests in this room.
Wait, is this the upper level or the lower level?
It's a Paradox Cave, who knows?
And despite being a Paradox Cave, it is not all that vexing in items. Turns out to be pretty much a bust.
Yeah. And from this, I can imagine Glenn might be considering heading over to Desert, which would be a good call, because that is where his glove's going to end up being.
Yeah, it's very easy to forget that you have that book when you get it that early.
Also, Prior doing a bit of sequence breaking here, doing a technique we call fake flippers, which allows you to swim in the water without the flippers. You essentially have to just jump in the water at the very edge of a screen transition, hold the directional button in that screen transition, and the game will basically think you're swimming. But you have to be very careful, can't get hit, otherwise you will basically take a death and have to try it again.
Yeah, this is based on the Japanese 1.0 version, the Randomizer ROM hack is. So, you know, a lot of the things that we try to use for the speedrun, for NMG, for example, really carry over in that regard. It's interesting how that fake flipper works is, you know, the game just doesn't realize that you couldn't have the flippers, or that, you know, it doesn't do a check when you do that screen transition. So we combine that with other glitches, too. When we get those boots, you may see some very nice item dashing.
Yes, definitely. And Prior actually was trying to do kind of a bit of a water walk there, but he did not have the Moon Pearl, which is another item you do need to make that work. So because of that, he couldn't get those 2 chests inside the Waterfall Fairy Cave.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate, you know, combination of items to have, as he will be the first one to actually go to Zora. And if we had that Moon Pearl, we would be able to actually take care of everything over here. So, but we do find the Cane of Burna on the ledge.
And from the big fish itself, just a heart container.
That's some big love. I'm curious though, Slim, would you pick up that Cane of Burna?
At this point, probably not. I have the cape, so, you know, that's really the only invincible item I would really care about at that point.
Fair enough, and quite a lot of lag frames as well with the Cane of Burna.
Yeah.
It seems like the Death Mountain fever is caught, and our runners are pretty much all converging up there. Glenn, having already trailblazed, is going to make his exploration, I presume, towards Hype Cave.
Yeah, he has all the items for Dark World, so that would be his more than likely next destination.
The ubiquitous Hype Cave, as we've always called it in previous logics, has a little bit less of that these days. However, we may still end up being surprised. We get a map check immediately. We have a Pendant Turtle Rock, and I think I saw 5, 6, and Pod and Ice Palace.
Those are the right other crystals. The entire right side was red from the look of it, so those are the 3 unique dungeons anyway. Pendant TR from... That's what chat was saying.
Well, some convenience here in Hype Cave. We do find that half magic, a shield that at least block arrows, and the hook shot. Nice. You know, I mean, it's not the best possible place to find a hook shot, but having it this early on really is a comfort.
Yeah, it really is. Has the ability to take out a lot of very weak enemies and stun some of the stronger ones, so, you know, it's a good tool to have.
Some of the enemies that insta-kills kind of, perplex me. You got the Pengators in Ice Palace, and it's just like a one shot to the face.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Tempered Sword, it's a little more, trouble. You actually have to spin slash if you want to get it in one go.
Yeah. Okay, from old Stumpy, just a green potion, and look like we can get the shovel check as well.
Yeah, that early mirror paying off immediately, and it's pretty easy to forget that shovel behind the fruit icon. So good heads-up thinking for Glenn there.
Unfortunately, the shovel will not be paying off in this seed. Well, it'll pay off 5 rupees, I guess, but...
It'll certainly put him in the hole a little bit with time.
Yeah.
Well, 2 successful bomb jumps for Argyle and Pryor. They're on their way to the Moldorm fight themselves. We'll find that Moon Pearl. Wondering if anybody's going to feel sorry about having checked Zora first. So the dig game here that you see from Glenn, the number of spots you need to check is randomized, but will be consistent between all of the runners, so we'll see the same number of digs for everybody.
Just for a red shield, Glenn is going to pick it up, though. I mean, we don't have blind finished yet, so I can understand maybe picking that up makes that fight a little easier.
I also like it for Lammolas too in Gan's Tower because it's just so annoying getting shot at by that statue every time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Totally not the most important reason, but I do it. Alright, Trolldorm's down, no falls. Very nicely done for Pryor and Argyle. Illis here finding out that their boot locked in Desert Palace, but we'll get that glove.
So we do have a bit of a moment of truth here. Okay, good. Pryor does go back in, because that hammer is also in here, and sometimes Hera Basement, I know there are some runners that feel very pressured to skip it, but at this point, when you're still looking for either lamp or hammer, I feel like you kind of have to check it, and there's not much remaining.
Thankfully, that's 3 for 3 with Argyle heading back down there as well. So a couple coffee breaks, about half an hour in, pretty good timing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you see it on display. Pryor's showing us right now. You can actually activate that switch and stand on top of the pegs when it activates to get constant, persistent invulnerability frames. Great way to get through this without having to worry too much. So we like to call it a coffee break.
Just make sure you're like on the exact center of the peg, because if you're kind of on the edge in that little corner piece, you can get stuck and have to mirror out or save and quit, and that's going to be a very frustrating maneuver you have to do.
Yeah, not a good place to be. Well, now that we're in the Dark World, though, Glenn's going to go check the Village of Outcasts. That's going to give us a number of items. Chess game here did not come up big for us, but we will open up Thieves Town on our way over to the C-shaped house. Or we're just going to go right in. I mean, it is a little faster to just walk straight into the dungeon if you plan on doing this completely. But if you could find a sword, I mean, it'd be nice to have a little bit of extra safety in here.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright, well, we know the boots are here. Where are we going to find them? Do you think Blind himself will carry it?
I'm gonna think it's that chest right there, actually.
Fair enough. Matter of convenience, though, Glenn will be the first one to grab those, and every second you have those boots is an advantage over your opponents. So, being the first of the featured restream runners, pretty nice to have that edge.
Yeah, and there are a couple of hallways in this dungeon too, where having those boots is really, really nice. So we'll definitely save them a lot of time in those rooms.
It's also very nice to have this for the blind fight too. Kind of an underrated item, but if you can dash around, you can help avoid some of the if things go sideways. Fighter sword blind is only slightly different from any other fight, as the sword is a little bit shorter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like everyone has the same exact idea here. It looks like we're all going to Village of Outcasts in Thieves Town.
Still plenty of time, of course, in the seed for things to diverge. We may see that after we finish up this in Skull Woods, depending on what our loadout looks like after that. But if things... Wow, Glenn here having a little bit of trouble in the Hellway, but does actually get on the God Pixel. If we end up seeing this linearity continue, there'll probably be a very small spread between the top 3 finishers. It'd be pretty rough for anybody who took longer.
Okay, so we did get a hint right there. A heart container being held by the Calcarico Elder, and that is actually Sashrala, and I think we have that information already, but Glenn did not get the green pendant, so that's actually really good of him to know and find that out.
Yeah, so we'll have no reason to revisit Eastern Palace with the lamp. As you mentioned, fantastic information. Well, we're tearing through here pretty quick. A lot of our runners putting on display hammer dashes to destroy 1 or 2 of these pots in these rooms. There's a question in chat about if you can hammer dash enemies. It's actually possible. You just have to stop the dash at the right time to hammer, because it only hits the ground when you stop the dash.
Yeah.
But to explain that, though, item dashing is a Japanese 1.0 exclusive glitch. It's when you press the item and dash button at the exact same time, go figure. When you do so, you enter a glitched animation state where Link's item is active throughout the dash. Some items behave differently, though, only functioning at the very end of the animation. But sometimes you can save time doing it.
Yeah, one of the coolest dashes to watch is actually the shovel dash, where you just like dig a whole bunch of holes in a row. It's pretty funny to look at.
The only downside to it, though, is that it doesn't actually dig up the squares. I mean, like, it looks like it does on the screen, but it doesn't do the real effect of digging. I wish it did, because then that'd be the best way to do dig game. So this is kind of a low health situation to be fighting blind with. Hopefully all of our runners have their practiced rehearsal done.
Well, it looks like Glenn is the only one to have half magic right now, so at the very least, he can kind of use that cape and kind of soak up a few shots with that.
It's kind of interesting how that worked out. He went through the Dark World to get to the Village of Outcasts. Everybody else with that flute decided to go straight back to town to take that portal. So far, having a decent blind fight, a little bit off the rails on phase 2 of it, though. We'll have to watch out for the changing flying head pattern.
But with the cape, he's able to take him down no problem. That is his second crystal and just a red rupee from blind, so...
Also of note to those asking in chat about needing a sword for this fight, you could have actually brought the Cane of Burna. That is an alternative weapon strat, so nobody picked that up at Zora, but that was a way to do this.
Yeah, with blind, you can fight him with the sword, you can fight him with the hammer, or both canes. All those weapons can do damage to him, and those are different ways you can fight him.
Also, I didn't mention it before, but shout outs to Blind for the pun. A weeknight is a... What was it again? Never mind, I missed it.
We'll catch it on our little screen.
Oh, I'm sorry, a tiny nobleman.
Right, okay, that's what it is, yeah.
That's one of the nice things about, the devs having made this, community driven ROM hack is that we get a lot of nice puns in various places in the game. Uncle Tuck's some of my favorite, personally.
Yeah.
Well, so it seems like the natural play for everybody should be Skull Woods after this, right?
I would be a little scared about it just because I'm not a huge fan of Fighter Sword Mothula, but yeah, it's right there. You have the Fire Rod, you have a sword, you can get through it, so it is a very logical play at this point.
There will be 2 item locations in total, and with that Fire Rod, we will be able to access all of them. However, it may be annoying to do so, as Slim just mentioned. But we will find out pretty quickly. A lot of people almost consider this to be overworld.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and chat reminding us there's a unique item at the Bumper Cave Ledge. Looks like Pryor will be the first to take a look. Or we'll walk past.
He's going to be checking out these other locations. He has the mirror, he has the boots, he can check some of these.
Yeah, it's true. King's Tomb with those boots, pretty easy to check.
Yeah, King's Tomb, Graveyard Ledge, the Bonk Rocks, and then you can just make his way up to Bumper Cave from there.
Oh, wow. Immediately rewarded with that lamp.
Ooh, okay. Well, if you want to do Aghanim now, we can, but I don't think our runners will want to do that.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Not unless we needed to use that portal for some reason, which we don't. But the lamp will be handy if we end up having any kind of issue with Misery Mire Basement. That's frequently one of the worst dark rooms in the game.
Yeah, and even though there are ways to make it easier, there are some runners that don't really like doing the Palace of Darkness dark rooms either, just due to how some of the enemies can act in those dark rooms.
But hey, it is October. Great time for some spooky stuff in the dark. Just saying, maybe somebody's bold today.
Maybe, we'll see.
Well, fortune favors the bold, and Illis is on the way to the Mothula fight with that fighter sword and regular magic. I may have actually picked up a blue potion at some point earlier. That would be the best case scenario.
Yeah, I think so. And look at that Cane of Samaria on Bumper Ledge. And nicely done from both Glenn and Eluse on their Mothula fights as well.
That's about as clean and crispy as it's going to get. Unfortunately, didn't have the lamp to distract him with. I hear moths like those. Pretty nice to have easy access to this cane, though. Would have been a crying shame if anybody had missed the cave sooner.
Yeah, definitely.
It's pretty nice to see Argle using the Bombos medallion here in Skull Woods. That's a pretty uncommon pretty uncommon use. And did we find a bottle on the pedestal?
I believe we did. One of the 4 bottles is on the pedestal.
Alright, well, we may have had the book pretty early on, but nobody really lost a lot of time checking that. Thankfully, we were able to do so right as we finished Mothula, so a pretty convenient mirror location.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we've already got people in chat talking about the Go mode, looking at flippers, mids. What else might we need here?
Those are the 2 big ones for sure, at least in terms of what we need to find still.
Potentially Ether.
There is the matter of, like, another sword upgrade, but we do know where one of those are going to end up being from the hint we got earlier, so that is good information to have.
It would actually be kind of interesting if you had Fighter Sword through the entire Gain's Tower and then did the Pyramid Fairy right after finishing Agate 2.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd lose all the time, but it would be a small time save.
Just have to find time to get Ice Palace and Palace of Darkness done for that sword upgrade.
Yeah, and those two items you mentioned were sorely lacking for Ice Palace, so those are definitely not going to be found there. Wow, so there's the prospect of a Fighter Sword Cold Stare too, isn't there?
Yes, there is. But with half magic somewhat available, that shouldn't be too much of a concern anyway. And bombos as well.
We got to see a really nice key dash from Prior there. As a note, usually you bonk off of walls and doors when you dash towards them, but Link actually moves at 4 pixels per frame while dashing. And if you line up perfectly along the coordinate grid of the game, you can actually open the door and dash through at the same frame. We call it a key dash. So oftentimes you just want to dash alongside something in the room. And if it nudges you, you should be lined up.
Arkle also showing one of my favorite bits of trivia from Link to the Past. The boomerang can stun the Gibdos, but the hookshot actually cannot. I've always found that weird.
Yeah, that really doesn't fit in very well with how the items work normally. Well, Prior here having a bit of a party, getting hammered with Mothula.
Oh, it does do tempered damage, so I can understand wanting to use that as opposed to the Fighter Sword.
For a little bit, he was a bit of a moth on the wall, but will burn down here in a fiery explosion in the center of the arena.
Just on Gland's side, we are going to Palace of Darkness next, which I do think this is a good play, because a lot of items in Palace of Darkness, you're completing a crystal dungeon in the process. We just found the lamp, so don't have to worry about those dark rooms either, and we have the hammer and bow, so we don't have to worry about getting stuck and not being able to progress anymore. He's also going to finally pick up this blue mail that he did not have just yet.
Yeah, that's not very, wow, he did all those fights without that. That's
yeah.
Thankfully, though, not a whole lot of benefit when it comes to blind. You really don't save much health unless you're going to get hit directly, but usually you're going to get hit by the fireballs.
Yeah.
Well, as you mentioned, Palace of Darkness is a pretty secure play to make. We don't have to worry about being bow-locked here.
Mm-hmm. That and our other crystal dungeon at this point, our other crystal dungeons are locked because we don't have mitts and we don't have flippers, which are pretty much required for entrance to those respective dungeons.
But Slim, what about Swamp?
Well, we don't have flippers. We can't swim. We can't. Well, I guess we can get the hint at the very least in there, but that's really all we could do.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering where we're going to find these flippers. But I actually have gone in there to check that hint before. It's just not something you'd really do unless you're in the area.
Yeah. One of my favorite times to check that is, like, purple chests or something like that. Just because you're kind of already on the road to doing a very long quest, so you may as well just pop in there after you're done to see what it is.
Yeah, if you're in the neighborhood for the Bombos tablet, no reason not to while you're over there. Thankfully, Sahasrahla had the foresight to put that hint very close inside the entrance.
Yeah, definitely. Because, yeah, in the vanilla game, that's where they actually tells you that, okay, you need to flood the water in the light world first before you can do this.
Yeah, not many people actually read those hints playing through, and if they've already played through the game once. But plenty of those exist in the world, and that's kind of the reason we have this hint system. We will find another hint here in the basement of Palace of Darkness. Illis finds that a compass and map are in the west side of Swamp Palace.
Well, I mean, that's especially good if we, if we get the flippers before the mids. So if we do have to clear up Swamp, we know that we don't have to look on that west side now.
Interestingly enough, that's neither of the item locations of Swamp Palace. Those are both dungeon items. So if we had gambled on the left side being worthless, would have been a good play today.
True, very true.
All right, well, no major progression here in Palace of Darkness. We did find a bug net, which could be useful as a safety, but nothing critical. Glan, having exhausted all of the front side of the dungeon, will be heading towards the back half. Prior and Illis not too far behind him.
Meanwhile, Argyle is helping an old man get back to his home.
I always wondered why he has a mirror in a dark cave. Must be magic, but we're going to see a hammer yump from Glan here. Very nicely executed.
Yeah, did not see too many buffers there, so definitely had that down.
I think he only used the one free buffer.
Yeah, and out there's flippers.
Wow. I was just so in shock from the basically bufferless bomb jump that... Well, he does find that flippers in the back half, and we'll be able to be comprehensive with the rest of these checks. Probably heading right down to Helmasaur King shortly thereafter. We don't have silvers or anything, so this will actually be kind of a slightly difficult fight with Fighter Sword.
Yeah.
I would think that he's probably going to do hammer shots, but I mean, it's even harder to do with a shorter hitbox.
Yeah, definitely. I think at this point we can safely say that after this, he's probably going to be taking a dip in the swamp, having all the items and, the left side being the slowest part of Swamp Palace. Definitely seems like a much better play right now.
By the looks of things, it appears that Glan is the only of our featured restreamed racers who will actually do the hammer jump, so that's a nice, nifty time save for him.
Oh, for sure.
And a pretty heads-up use of the Cane of Samaria to hit that switch, as we will use it immediately again in this room. No sexy statues today, but we will have a nice switch. I gotta commend Glan's menu management. That's pretty efficient today.
Yeah, it's really, really solid. That's admittedly something I've started trying to work on a bit more in my runs, now that I kind of am more familiar with routing and certain tricks and stuff. Just trying to work on that kind of menu optimization, figuring out what items you'll need next, and kind of bringing them up as you're traveling along, and thinking about what you're doing next ahead of time, so you can just kind of save some time there.
And it's very nice that we do have a tracker in the credits sequence that the devs put in. That does allow us to see how much time we spent in menus, how many times we bonked.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely information worth looking at if you're trying to get faster in this game.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, no turtle parties here in the dark for Glan, despite a slight misstep getting through with no damage. Very important. With Blue Mail, though, we're a little bit safer for this fight. This could have been a lot worse. Well, Helmasaur King here takes 17 smacks to the face with the hammer to destroy his shield. He could use, I believe it's 3 or 4 bombs instead. Very few people do that. You can also despawn this fireball if you do that 17th hit while it's on the screen. But after that, it's going to take 4 hammer shots to the face, or the jewel, to destroy him, or a lot of sword slashes.
And we do have that bow as well. Can do some damage with arrows, but it looks like does not need that at all. Takes him down really quickly.
Yeah, the RNG was pretty friendly despite that fireball. Didn't really move around a lot. In the first phase, he can only move around or attack. He can't do both at the same time. In phase 2, he can do all of his animations at the same time, doing a fireball and a tail swing and moving.
And with that, that is crystal number 4.
Oh, looks like bow strats for Illis. Good to point that out, as that is, it usually takes 8 arrows to destroy the second phase.
We had those nice silvers. It'd only take one shot, but unfortunately we have not found those yet.
Yeah, silvers really do make their value obvious once you've start using them in boss fights. Only 2 enemies in the entire game can survive more than 1 silver arrow, with the exception of Ganon, of course. Vitreous and Hokoboku.
Also, looks like Glenn is taking a quick trip to Eastern Palace first before opting to go to Crystal Dungeons.
Yeah, we know this is a time sink for Glenn, but with the hookshot, we'll be able to check it a little bit faster. He does have the boots.
So with that, I believe Pryor, since Pryor has gone through at least a little bit of Eastern Palace, we'll be able to kind of take a bit of a slight lead here and just kind of start working if he does decide to go to Swamp next.
Yeah, and I believe Pryor has been through Eastern Palace, like you mentioned, so, I mean, that's every little bit of extra time advantage. We'll opt to save and quit here, knowing that Eastern Palace, or Armos Knights, doesn't have anything of value. May end up returning later, though, with the temptation of that green pendant. And as you mentioned before, sometimes you find the hint for something you've already located. Glenn just had a moment like that here in Eastern Palace.
Yep. Yeah, looks like Pryor is going south here to Swamp, so that is going to be our next next play here.
Oh, looks like Illis will be the first one into the back half of the escape of the sewers to find that 1 item in the dark.
If this ends up being Mitts.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
Just 50 rupees, unfortunately.
I was so excited.
Okay, so Glenn is saving and quitting. He does know that the green pendant is just a heart container, and I believe that's all the items from Eastern, so not going to worry about getting the rest of that.
Yeah, I keep forgetting we had the hint that Village Elder had that, so yeah, no need to do all that. However, Pryor will be the first one into Swamp, and as we were talking about, this would be the lead, respectively, of the featured restreamed racers.
Yeah.
Well, it'll definitely take a little bit to get in there. As a reminder to everybody, if you're enjoying the content that these racers are putting on for you, please give them a follow, show them some love here on Twitch. Best way to support them.
Honestly, at this point, like, I'm really trying to think about the locations we have left. And honestly, like, I'm just thinking it's Swamp and maybe, like, a chest or 2 in Desert. And I think that's, like, really the only options we have left at this point, because a lot of stuff is Mitts blocker right now.
Yeah, for Desert, it's just the big key and the torch, which would lead us to the big chest, and that's pretty much it, so... Yeah, I'm running short of options as well.
There is Catfish as well. Someone in chat is pointing that out.
So Catfish, Spike Cave, and Waterfall Cave?
Oh, right, yeah, I don't think we've gotten the Waterfall Cave. Oh, there's a Master Sword, so don't even need to get the Pyramid one if we don't want to.
Now, of course, I wonder if anybody's going to stop there if they don't find Tempered before Ganon.
Master Sword will give us Bombos tablet as well.
Oh, that's true, and Ether.
We do know that Ether is the red mail, though, at this point.
Yeah, so only cowards would go and grab that, right?
Probably. Maybe if your hearts are, like, really, really low, like you're still in the first line and you're going up to Ganon's Tower, maybe you could grab that just for safety, but yeah, blue mail should be enough.
Oddly enough, yet another item not that far removed from its vanilla location. Is that...
I think that we are. Yes, it was.
All right, we got the heavy lift power. All right, so Titans mitts. What a place to find them.
Yeah, and again, the chances were really good for them being here. Swamp has 6 items. You know, there was a good opportunity for them to be here. It's a dungeon that's, you know, the only dungeon that is left in the Dark World that doesn't need the Titan's mitts. And with that, Prior is essentially in a go mode state at the moment. Silver arrows would be nice, a sword upgrade would be nice, but you know, he can complete the game with the equipment that he has right now.
Yeah, I think the only unanswered question we have at this point is what is Misery Mire's
Oh! Yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about that.
But even then, I mean, 2/3 chance of this being go mode, we're pretty much all set. Yeah. And it would have been interesting to see what would have happened here in Swamp Palace if we didn't have that hint, as I imagine a lot of people would have gone left.
Yeah, definitely.
While getting a little close to death here, Prior does manage to secure this with a couple of fire rod shots and sword spins. Master Sword, not exactly a comfortable fight for Argus, as most of the time we're familiar with having Tempered here.
Yeah. So at this point, I can imagine Prior gonna probably mirror Flute to warp point number 6 and just immediately see what that Mire medallion requirement is going to be. If he has it, he's going to go straight in there. If not, you know, he has a couple of other options on the table at the very least, so he can kind of work his way through there. Because he does have the mitts, so a lot of stuff has opened up now.
Yeah, Ice Palace, of course, being the other major dungeon in mind. Interestingly enough, Will stopped to pick up some potions on the way through. Pretty wise time to be doing it. I don't think you'd want to do this, you know, several times, say, before you get to Ganon's Tower. Making sure to drop the base with the flute dash. Very nicely done. And yeah, so we're about to find out here what Misery Mire is. This will be our confirmation or declination of go mode. And today it is Quake.
Okay, he's going for it.
So it only took us about 57 minutes, but we are confirmed go mode for Prior. And Glan as well, I guess. And Illis.
And you know, like, it's not too crazy to think that Argyle might actually get those mitts before the hour mark as well. So all 4 restream runners actually kind of get into that go mode state at the very least fairly early on in the seed.
You know, it's too bad that one of the 5/6 crystals was Ice Palace, because this would be a very convenient place to be heading straight to the big bomb right after.
Yeah.
But Glenn showing Argus who is boss, having no problems taking that fight down.
And at this point, like, you got to imagine that, you know, Ganon's Tower has a pretty good opportunity. Also, we have the Godmire with the big key in the first chest, so we can immediately finish this very quickly. But with all the chests we're checking in Ganon's Tower to find the big key, there's a chance we can find another sword upgrade, the final one, or even silver arrows. So the run could still get exponentially faster just with normal, regular checks.
Alrighty, well, moving our way on to the basement. Nobody's going to have to do that in the dark today. However, our fight with Vitreous may be a bit challenging for these runners. Master Sword isn't exactly the easiest way to do it. With half magic, though, the cape strats might be the way to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
To answer a question in chat regarding who's in the lead on the restream, at the moment it appears to be Prior.
Yeah, I'd say definitely Prior at this point. He is, you know, he's in a dungeon that no other runner has been into, and, you know, as far as everyone else is concerned, they've all completed the same dungeons for the most part. So he is definitely in the lead, I'd say.
This is looking surprisingly like NMG if we had skipped Ice Palace at a different time. With that, though, Vitreous here is going to be a pretty exciting fight. The Cape Strats seem to be the right way to go. Thankfully, without the burn, we're not going to have to do some like super laggy fighting strats here.
Yeah, and sword spins with the half magic as well. Just really able to get all these eyeballs down without too much of a difficulty, and then just switch to the bow to knock out the big one.
It's extra nice, too, that Prior is able to do this fight without using his blue potion, as we will get a full magic refill on any boss kill.
There we go, that is crystal number 6, and all we have left is just a go mode Ice Palace.
Which will be very quick.
Yeah, Ice Palace, one of those dungeons that I always remember from my youth is just taking days to get through. But, with just a bomb jump and, having to avoid that whole crystal puzzle, it just makes it so much faster.
Alright, well, in we go. There is, of course, another hint tile, or 2 hint tiles in here, I believe, right?
There are actually 3 hint tiles in Ice Palace, but at this point, I just don't see they're going to be checking them. They have all the items they need.
Yeah, you can find one in that first room, in the long ice hallway, as well as in the room with the Stalfos Knights, which you have to use bombs to destroy.
Yeah. There could be always the possibility of, like, the hint of silver arrows being given or something of that nature, but, I feel like our runners at this point, like, they know that the competition's fierce. I'm sure they're pretty comfortable with, silverless strats if they need to do them. So I can see them just not really worrying about the hints, and if they get them all in the way, great. If not, well, let's do this anyway.
Something that might become relevant for the final Ganon fight is how many bottles we have. Having blue potion refills could be a significant difference between these runners with their magic count towards the end.
Yeah, very, very true.
So our tracker Wolflink asking us directly if we were the types who would go and get that tempered if we were faced with a Master Sword Silverless. Personally, I would. I think a lot of these runners wouldn't.
For me, I've done it before. It's definitely inconvenient, but I feel confident enough in my silverless strats to, if I have to do it, I'm just going to do it and get it over with. Don't want to waste too much time checking unnecessary locations if I don't have to.
Yeah, I think doing the sword spins in the first couple phases are what frustrates me the most.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about just finding that rhythm, and once you have that rhythm, it's really not too bad, but, if you're doing it for the first time or you're not as experienced, it can definitely be kind of tricky and overwhelming.
It's also really tough to do all of Ganon's tower and get to the top of the pyramid and decide to not jump into the Ganon fight when you're right there. Well, blink and you miss it. Prior, all the way at the bottom of Ice Palace already. Argyle not that far behind either, and Glan having just kind of walked through the front door himself. It was hot on his heels as well. With half magic and bombos, though, this is trivial.
Yeah, very, very trivial. You can even pick up that fire rod and do some extra shots and potentially get rid of them before you even run out of magic, too.
Well, who wants s'mores? You just burn them all down.
And gets the ice rod for the reward.
What kind of sick irony is this?
Very sick irony.
Thankfully, Turtle Rock not on the menu today.
Nope. What we do have on the menu, though, is we are going to Ganon's Tower now, last dungeon, and, when it comes to these races, there is definitely some hype we like to generate for where that big key location is going to end up being. There are 22 locations where that key could end up being, and we like to speculate where do we think that big key is going to be. But first, Prior is actually making the tempered play.
Well, perhaps he has tempered his expectations of how the other racers in the field will do with Master Sword. Possibly thinking that somebody will probably fail the fight and maybe have a little bit better of a chance of getting in the top 3 with this.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I like it, and just compared to the like restream runners right now, like he definitely has that time too. So
Yeah, as far as these 4 are concerned, yeah, this definitely pays off. One thing that a lot of people discount easily is just how difficult Ganon's Tower can be with Master Sword. I mean, if you're really good at the combat, you can kind of get through it. But there's a lot of enemies you need extra hits for.
yeah, and especially as you're going up the gauntlet, there are a lot of enemies that, if you have the tempered sword, they go down in one shot no matter what. So it is kind of good to have that. Moldorm goes down in just 2 shots as well if you use spins, and it is just a very, very helpful sword upgrade to have for Ganon's Tower.
Wouldn't it be hilarious though if we find another sword in Ganon's Tower?
Oh, I'm totally expecting that to happen. Honestly, I'm expecting to find gold sword up there or silvers as well.
That's the interesting other possibility here. Ooh, Glan getting kind of close here in his cold stare fight. Gotta be careful. But if we do find another sword there, it may actually come back to bite Prior in the backside, because a lot of runners will have saved some of that time over him.
Yeah. I do very want to do. Oh wait, no. Argo still has to do Meyer still?
Yes, by the looks of it. So not as close as we had thought. Well, maybe not. That may have been missed. However, it would be good to have that before Meyer. Well, that being said, though, Prior is on the way to Ganon's Tower now. We'll be taking the Super Bunny Cave way through. And has some decisions to make about where we're going to try and find that big key. We have left and right side, of course. We cannot continue further in the right side if we don't find a key, so a lot of folks will start with there. So, Slim, do you have hopes and dreams for where we're going to find this big key today? Is there a number of your favor?
I always like number 8. I don't know why. I just like number 8.
Fair enough. I'm also a fan of 14 myself. Presuming, of course, that it's Bob the Glitch Sprite. I've always been a fan of him.
We are starting our exploration now, about an hour and 7 minutes into the seed.
Talk about a blazing fast one.
And there's the Ether Medallion.
Alright, so that's 3 out of 3 confirmed go mode, right?
Yeah. We're officially in go mode now.
Torch today is going to give us a key, so rip Bob. F to pay respects, I guess.
Yeah, sorry, but, always good to have those small keys in here if it could save you some time.
Absolutely. If you're going up to the top of the tower, do not ascend the stairs without at least 1 key. You can find yourself in a position where you need to backtrack.
Yep, definitely.
Finding quite a few of them, actually, here on the left side. Meanwhile, it looks like everybody has picked up a tempered sword. Except Glan?
Yeah, it looks like Glan is going to be sticking with his Master Sword here.
It would take some pretty excellent execution, but he does have a chance to gain some time back on Prior here.
And yeah, this is definitely where you have to also kind of start thinking about the statistics right now, if you are playing. At this point, like, Glan is in actually really good shape on the groups. He's pretty secure in his current location. Even if this is a race where, he had to burn, like, he'd still be in very good shape to qualify. So, why not get some Master Sword progress or practice in?
Yeah, very valid point. We may find ourselves in higher difficulties and even in very challenging inventory situations in groups. So no better time to be putting some real world, experience to the test.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, randomizer room. Gonna check 4 chests here. We would never ever be here in the NMG speedrun, which is why we call it that. But it has nothing for us today, just like an NMG. I thought it was kind of interesting to see that both Glenn and Pryor hesitated a bit before deciding to go left. Both of them seem to have some reservations about continuing on with right. Oh, I'm sorry, they didn't have a key. What was I thinking?
Yeah, they didn't have a key. They only got bombs and the ether medallion from that.
Yeah, it was weird. They both stopped to hit the switch, too. All right, well, moving on. Ice Armos, a fight that we frequently don't see in Ganon's Tower. Pryor will have just regular arrows to work with, so we're going to need to use 18 of them on this icy floor. Potentially more. Sometimes, like, giving a couple to the wall. Unfortunately, not able to land a fast kill. The last one, of course, when it hits its enraged phase, will actually take a full heal. Pryor tried to stagger it, but it was just slightly off. But we'll get rewarded with the big key.
And he has 2 keys going up the tower, so he is good to go. Going to be making the push for the final boss fights and to get this seed done.
Well, if you like to watch execution, if you like the speed tech behind this game, Ganon's Tower is the place to be watching. Pryor here taking advantage of the mimics having some weird movement behavior following Link and mirroring him. Taking advantage of the fact that you can manipulate this even while you're in the middle of a sword/slash animation. We'll actually have to pick up some arrows, though, almost having to backtrack through the entire basement again to go find some.
And one good thing is he has at least 4 arrows left, so if he does happen to find silvers at the top of the tower, he's still good for that fight as well. So it's just enough for that scenario if it were to come up.
And Glan accidentally missing the chest before Ice Armos. It's a good thing that he's going to check the right stuff here. I'm not surprised to see Pryor picking up the restock room here in Ganon Ball Z, as this is a pretty low health situation. Wow, Glan just melted those Armos.
Yes, he did. He is going to be starting his ascent up the gauntlet as well.
Yeah, so nothing really that we could have diverged on here in Ganon's Tower besides checking extra things. But a pretty straightforward GT ascent nonetheless. Pryor and, of course, Glan having to get through some of the more difficult combat sections. Pryor doing pretty well so far through his segment, really showing off the difference of temper. And a masterfully done Fire Rod Lambolus as well.
Wow, yeah, really nice. Looks like Argyle is going to be picking up that red mail over here. And, you know, it does make sense, like, looking at our health right now, none of our runners are on that second row yet.
Yeah, and even if you weren't doing it for any other reason, Ganon himself is very much valuable. You know, Green Mail Link will take 8 hearts of damage from taking a hug from Ganon. So every mail upgrades health for that fight. And we are 2 for 2 on restocks.
At this point, all 4 of our restream runners are in Ganon's Tower, so very nice progress from all 4 of them.
I have to wonder, does Glan have a potion? I'm pretty sure he picked up a green potion earlier.
Yes, he does have a green potion. I believe he found that, I don't remember where exactly. I want to say it was like an early Dark World, but
That sounds about right. Yeah, that was one that you found in the world itself, didn't have to purchase that, so it did actually save a little bit of time not going to the potion shop for that purpose. Sadly, though, these Aztecs are a lot harder to kill with Master Sword.
And there goes Moldorm 2 down for Prior, and now he's going to check the chest over here, or not. Never mind.
I find that kind of interesting, as the vanilla Big 20 chest would be a great place to be finding silvers at this point, or even a gold sword. I mean, it saves time.
Yeah, it does.
Wow, what a triple!
Ooh.
There's a chance that that may not have counted for 3 shots if 2 energy ball attacks hit in the same frame. They'll actually overlap. But it looks like that was perfect. So for the blue ball situation that they got, Prior managed to do that in 3 cycles. That was a really great fight.
Yeah, really nice. And he's going to be making his way now to the Ganon fights, and will be finishing very shortly, I imagine.
The Ganon fight itself is pretty much home territory with Tempered Sword. It has 4 phases to work with. Phase 1 will be 12 sword slashes, or the equivalent in sword spins, which would be 6. Same for Phase 2. Phase 3 will be 4 total hits. And then Phase 4, if you have silvers, is 4 silvers, or 12 sword spins, in a very small frame window. So far, good Phase 1. Unfortunately, taking some hits on Phase 2, so having to be a little bit careful with escape.
Oh, hey, we have the magic to burn with half magic, so...
Well, that's Phase 3, though. And of course, there may have been a lot of warps, but all of our runners will have the same warp RNG unless they die. Prior's all set to get that Phase 4 started. Has his lamp out. We'll have to dodge these fire bats.
And the silver arrows were inside Ganon's tower somewhere, so it's either on the right side or, again, in some of those last chests in the building.
And we just found out on Glan's side that the Vanilla Big 20 was also a Vanilla Big 20.
Interesting.
So definitely a couple of those last ones. I mean, maybe even the Mini Helmasaur room. That seems like a likely candidate.
Or it could have been in everyone's favorite time consumption, the tile room.
That'd be so sad. That definitely wouldn't save time. Or would it? I don't know. I mean, that might be enough time to save for... I mean, but nobody would do it.
Yeah, I think overall it would still save a little bit more time, but, like, not much at all.
Well, Prior here is running a little low on magic. Has an opportunity to finish this up, though, with a couple more spins.
There we go.
Well, that's an impressive time for Prior. Unofficially on stream, he shows his 1:18:51. Of course, get your GGs in chat. We'll see if Prior wants to join us for an interview. Meanwhile, Glenn will be in his Master Sword fight. Take all the numbers that we just said for these phases and double them. That's the Master Sword fight for you. Not only that, but you have to do sword spins instead of slashes. Well, Glenn does have to be conservative with his magic and takes a death, unfortunately.
And not have a fairy either, unfortunately, either.
While he makes his reattempt, just as an update on some of the finish times, first place in this race today was Thelane with a 1:15.50. Second was Error with a 1:17.16, and Pryor, who just finished with a 1:18.52, was our third place finisher.
Really nicely done. And again, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the race, Pryor was actually the only one of these 4 runners who not only has only done one of his required races so far, but was actually below the threshold. So this third place finish of his is definitely going to be taking his stats up for sure.
And we are joined by the victor of the featured restreamers in third place overall in the SRL race. Congratulations and GG Pryor.
Thanks, hello.
I gotta ask you, how you feeling about this third place finish today?
Yeah, I'm really happy to finally get a good result for those qualifiers. So I'm really happy to finish third. I think my early dip in escape, and it cost me like 2 or 3 minutes, and cost me the victory. But I'm really happy with that. There's no problem.
Well, one thing that we saw you do that only one of the other featured racers didn't do was pick up Tempered. That was an interesting decision to make. Did you feel like you were going to save more time overall in doing that at that point?
Yeah, we knew with new hints that Pyramid Fairy got a quarter heart and something sharp. So yeah, it was I think better because you have more power through gauntlet and all that. It's a good security to get. I think it's better to get tempered sword than mail upgrade.
Yeah, that's very true. And if I recall correctly, this is your second race, so you have to do all of the remaining races in order to get all 5 in. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Well, we admire your dedication to get them all done sequentially. And, if your luck's any better than mine, hopefully each sequential race will be a little bit faster as well. Although 1:18.51, nothing to slouch about. That's a pretty good time.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that. It was pretty fast. I think I got fooled with early sword, so I decided to get to the castle, Hyrule Castle, very early because you were right there. So I lost 2 or 3 minutes, but. No, overall, I'm really happy with my play today, and I hope I can qualify keeping that play up, and we will see.
Well, you're certainly on the right course for that. Also on stream, just tying back to the race real quick, all 3 of our remaining racers are in the Ganon fight, and Glenn actually did manage to finish up his Master Sword finish right before Illis gets to phase 4 with Tempered. So big old congratulations to Glenn. Who will finish in 9th place with 1:24.05. Before we bring Glenn in, Pryor, any final thoughts you'd like to share with the fans out there?
Yeah, I will thank you to take the time to commentate our race, and thanks to Speed Gaming hosting the tournaments, and thanks to our trackers, restreamers. Thanks you all.
Certainly our pleasure. Well, that was Pryor, and thank you for joining us for that. And we're also joined by Glenn, who just finished up on the restream. GG.
Thanks.
Well, a fall notwithstanding, Glenn, I think you put on a clinic for us, or on display for how you should manage a Ganon's Tower with Master Sword. I saw you used a lot of Fire Rod, and that seemed to be a really good tool for you in the Ascent. How are you feeling regarding the decision to skip the Tempered, though?
I mean, I figured it wouldn't really save that much time in the end, but I guess I overestimated how practiced I was at Master Sword Ganon.
You know, that being said, though, going into the fight, you had actually maintained a pretty steady gap between yourself and Prior in Ganon's Tower. Like, you didn't really lose much time over it.
Yeah, there's not too much time to be lost. That it's really just like the two red Zazaks room that really gets a bit harder with Master Sword. Everything else kind of dies to Master Sword anyway.
That makes sense. Also, just to update everybody, as Illis just finished on Restream with 125.28 in 12th place, Argyle will also walk into the Triforce room, getting 13th place right behind him at a 126.15. So GG's to them. Glenn, though, how does this place you regarding the rest of the qualifiers?
Well, that was my last race. I think I'm in pretty good standings here.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly I think my best right now is a 0.93 that'll get dropped, but then I have like a 0.92, and this one's probably like a 0.9-ish roughly, if I had to guess. 0.9. So
Goodness gracious.
I think I'm in pretty good spot.
Yeah, I think barring any catastrophic, numbers shifting in the next few races, I think it's a pretty secure place. So we'll be looking forward to seeing you in groups as well. Looks like we're also joined by Illis, who has joined us just after finishing his race. GG.
GG, thank you.
So we've been talking about a lot the decision to pick up Tempered Sword. You did that before you went up to Ganon's Tower. I believe Argyle was the only one who did it before going to Misery Mire. What was running through your head when you made that decision?
I was thinking that even if I do really well, that that score gets dropped, so I wanted to play it safe. We did not have much health and stuff, and we skipped a lot of spots, so I did not believe that we would find Silvers or another sword.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, this makes this your fourth race?
No, it's my fifth, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was decent enough. Most of my qualifier races had some really iffy stuff going on. This one as well. Like, running out of arrows in GT is one of the worst things.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still a decent enough time, so I won't complain. There have been worse things happening to me.
Yeah, and looking at the document right now, you are kind of like on that border of like the top 96 and just above pretty much the border where that score ends. And a score like this, I think, will definitely be a good way to kind of secure that a little more. So definitely GG on the performance on this one.
Thank you. Considering how catastrophic most of my qualifier races were, I'll take it. I definitely will.
Mm.
So I kind of want to extend this question to you, Ellis, is, looking forward to groups, so you do qualify. Do you have a certain game type combination that you plan on inflicting on your opponents?
I guess I'm gonna do some inverted. I'm not exactly sure if I'm one of the best players or whatever, but it's really fun to me. And well, for the rest, I think I'll just study my opponents a bit and see what they like or what they don't like, and maybe be a bit flexible.
I will also say that this was also a really interesting seed where the hints were actually quite useful in a lot of respects. Just kind of giving you, like, in certain ways, nods to where certain items were going to end up being, and also just kind of, keeping you away from those locations you didn't really need to look. I know that one of the big ones was the left side of Swamp Palace, knowing that, well, Swamp Palace is a dungeon you kind of want to do in Go mode. Knowing what's on the left side, it actually kind of makes that decision to go there earlier, and that's where the mitts end up being. So definitely really showed the power of what those hints can actually do in a seed like this.
Yes, they were really useful, though I would probably have gone to Swamp anyway after finding the hook shot. I was really late to Hype Cave, so and so I had the mirror and the flippers early by the time I found the hook shot. So I figured I would have gone to Swamp anyway and found the mitts and just go on at the rest.
Yeah.
In the end, it's despite being a very powerful hint, it did not matter all that much.
Was that a Linkin Park reference? Well, and the nice thing too is you got to skip the left side with that hint. So I mean, the power of those hints really coming through as we're discussing. And I think version 30 going forward, I think a lot of people are going to be more inclined to check locations in Hyrule and Dark World that we really don't look at too often. Dark Chapel being one of them.
Personally, I don't think the swamp hint affected my decision too much. I've learned just from doing these qualifiers that, like, when you have access to swamp, you go to swamp. In my 5 races, 4 of them had required swamp. One of them swamp was a pendant mirror was in GT.
Ooh. That is true. A lot of qualifiers have seemed to have been featuring that trend for sure.
It's just swamp just seems to be like the hot place to go in V30. I'm not really sure why, but
yeah, definitely.
And I always do like straight to Argus and then left side, so the hint didn't even really affect me that much.
That's fair. We are starting to see these collection rates appear on screen. We have 124 from prior, 128 from Glam. So really, really low collection rates we have so far.
Not too often you get barely half of Hyrule.
Yeah, really.
Well, as a reminder to everybody watching of when you can expect to see the rest of the qualifiers, most of these runners who we featured today have finished up their 5. You may still see Argyle, I believe, potentially doing more races, but we do have 3 remaining qualifiers to do. We have Friday, which is tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturday, the following day at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and Sunday at 5:30 Eastern Time. That'll be when the races will start. We will start the restream about 15 to 20 minutes after that. And of course, the best place to find those are here in the Speed Gaming family of channels, Speed Gaming and Speed Gaming 2 through 6, of course, as well as a link to the Randomizer and ALTTPR Randomizer 2 through 4 as well.
And we do have Eluse's collection rate 131, another very low collection rate as well, and then 124 from Argyle. So yeah, like all kind of in that 124 to 131 range. And we are getting the information that Argyle will not be doing an interview, so that's gonna be potentially wrapping this up unless there's any other questions you have, Udai.
No, I would like to thank all of our racers for putting on the show for us today. The best way to show them some love and support is to give them a follow here on Twitch. I'd also like to thank our trackers today. We had Wolflink and R Sigma. Thank you for punching numbers and hitting buttons, making sure that we're accurate. And of course, I have to mention the illustrious, the famous, the best of the best, Slim Kirby. Thank you for joining me on the commentary today.
Well, I'm surprised you said my name because I thought you were going to say yourself right there. Because seriously, always a pleasure commentating with you, Udai Mystic. You're great person to talk some Zelda with, and it's always been fun working with you. And of course, want to thank all of the people in Twitch chat for coming by and watching this race with us. It's always fun to interact with you guys and see how these races play out.
With that, I think that's pretty much everything we've got. Would like to offer Pryor and Glenn a chance if they have anything they'd like to say to their fans out there. This is your moment.
No, I got nothing to say.
What about you, Illis?
I have fans.
Absolutely.
Thanks. If you've been rooting for me, thank you very much.
Alrighty, folks. Well, they said it the best. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for keeping track of this tournament. We're excited to see the remaining qualifiers, and of course, the very exciting and fast-paced and different group stage that we have coming up next, which I'm very excited for. So, from everybody here at Speed Gaming in the Fall Randomizer Tournament, thanks for tuning in, folks. We will see you next time.
Later, everyone.